So we are on page 9. We've completed more than half of this section. And now we'll start getting into the interesting parts. So the stringent view insists that Kabbalat HaMitzvot entails total commitment to observe all mitzvot in every detail, and that conversions lacking such a commitment are not valid. It has already been demonstrated that these views are not mandated by and are not even compatible with the rulings of the Talmud, Rambam, and the Shulchan Aruch. Yet, the proponents of the restrictive view are so convinced of their position, they cannot imagine the classic halakhic sources disagree with them. So, again, I'm reading this person's experience here. He says, I discussed the Rambam's ruling in Hilchot Asuri Bia, chapter 13, Halacha 17. Now, as I read this story, it's just amazing what this judge says, because I'm so familiar with Asuri Bia, chapter 13 and 14, not just this one halakha found in chapter 13. But I've seen this many times, so you'll be interested to hear this. So he says he was discussing this, Asuri Bia, chapter 13, Halacha 17, with a prominent judge in Israel. The Rambam states unequivocally that a convert who was circumcised and immersed in the presence of 3 laymen is a convert. Even if the conversion was with ulterior motives, and even if the convert subsequently worshipped idols, he is still to be considered as an apostate Jew, which is not a non-Jew. If he betroths a Jewish woman, according to Halacha, the betrothal is valid, i.e., he is a Jew. Rambam does not allow for retroactive annulment of the conversion. Rambam does not invalidate the conversion of a person with imperfect motives, even one who worshipped idols after the conversion. So the judge answered that Rambam was speaking of a convert who had studied Torah and mitzvot in advance of being circumcised and immersed. It clearly says the exact opposite. That convert fully accepted all the mitzvot to the last detail before immersing in the mikveh. Again, when you read these 2 chapters, you understand that's what this judge is claiming is not at all present there. Then, after coming out of the mikveh, he had a change of heart and went to worship idols. But if this convert had not known the mitzvot, nor accepted sincerely to observe all the mitzvot originally, then the conversion would not have been valid. I asked the judge, if Rambam meant what you say he meant, why didn't he say so? Rambam was quite careful with his use of language and could easily have presented the scenario as you described, but he did not do so. His language manifestly indicates that he was not operating with your assumptions, but had a quite different view of conversion. The judge answered, Rambam could not have meant anything other than what I explained. And this is the circular logic, the circular reasoning that they use. On this topic, I've heard a rabbi say once, when I pointed out that this person who went to worship idols, his marriage is valid. He's allowed, it's a 2-step process. The betrothal is the first part, and then the actual marriage. And he said, no, that's just an exception for that one specific case. Well, he's allowed to get married. No, there is no example where you're somehow not Jewish, but you're allowed to marry into the Jewish people. The reason he's allowed to marry the Jewish people is because he converted. So he is a Jew, even though he's an apostate. He's still halakhically a Jew, and that's why he's eligible to marry into the Jewish people. Just like someone who's halakhically Jewish because their mother is halakhically Jewish, even though this person nor his mother are observant. They're halakhically Jewish, and that's why they're allowed to marry, whether they're observant or not. Their legal status of being halakhically Jewish gives them the right to marry into the people. So what this judge was using here was the same type of circular reasoning. So the judge began with the axiom that conversion equals total commitment to observe all mitzvot. If Rambam said something in opposition to that axiom, then Rambam needs to be reinterpreted regardless of how far-fetched the interpretation is and how untrue it is to Rambam's own language. So other rabbis have offered similar responses based on circular reasoning. When I have pointed out that the Talmud, Rambam, and Shulchan Aruch do not define Kabbalat HaMitzvot as total commitment to observe all mitzvot in detail, but rather as a general acceptance of mitzvot, proponents of the current stringent view have retorted, the Talmud, Rambam, and Shulchan Aruch did not have to spell things out, since they assumed that a convert would observe all the mitzvot. It was so obvious to them, they didn't even have to state this. Yet the fact is that the Talmud, Rambam, and Shulchan Aruch specifically described the conversion process and stated that the would-be convert should be informed of only some of the major and minor mitzvot. And then it gives 2 examples, and only 2 examples. The Talmud discusses the case of a convert who did not even know the laws of Shabbat. Rambam and Shulchan Aruch did not invalidate the conversion of a convert who later worshipped idols. If the Talmud, Rambam, and Shulchan Aruch accepted the standards of Rabbi Shmelkis and others, they would have said so clearly. We must take their words in their context as they were intended. It is not appropriate to read one's own views into the texts. And this is describing an asmakta. You know, it's interesting that we'll always look at Christians, and because they believe in JC, they'll take that belief and they'll insert it into our texts in Torah. And they'll say, oh, look, JC's on this page, and it's being referenced here in this prophecy, in books where he's not mentioned even one time. And we criticize them for doing that, correctly so. But when it comes to what we just described about the conversion process, rabbis do the exact same thing. They take the view of what's popular today. Well, this is what many people that I know are doing, and we insert it into text where it is nowhere to be found. In a text, by the way, which says the exact opposite of what they claim. And it's like, how do you not see that you're criticizing this person for doing something, but then when it comes to converts, you do the exact same thing with the codification that tells us how to perform these conversions. So it's like there's such a lack of self-awareness that you sometimes see people saying, you know, if you ask if your grandmother on your mother's side was not Jewish and you found out, that means your mother's not Jewish. That means you're not Jewish. Would you convert to Judaism or would you remain a Gentile? I've never heard a Jew say anything other than, well, me, I would convert. Okay, and if there's a non-Jew who hears you say that, he wants to convert, what would you tell him? No, it's not for you. It's not for you. You should go find some other religion, follow 7 laws. If you already have some religion, that keeps more laws, just switch to this one where you keep only 7. And they don't seem to realize that they're saying it's a great opportunity for me and my family, but it's a burden for you. You don't want to benefit from what I and my family benefit from. So yeah, it's quite astounding to see sometimes. And that's page 9. We will move on with page 10 in the next video.